This is attorney David Gibbs with the National Center for Life and Liberty. At the NCLL, we've been receiving a lot of questions about what a church or what a school should do if someone within their ministry, on their staff, one of their students, or people they're ministering to, is confirmed with a COVID-19 viral infection. Now, there is no one-size-fits-all. As every ministry is different, every organization is different, different jurisdictions, different areas, different intensities where the virus is more severe or less worrisome. And so as organizations deal with these issues, we do want to remind you that it's an individualized approach, and every organization has the autonomy and the ability to make decisions that are best for their church or their school. One of the questions we're receiving is, what do we do if a student in our preschool or in our day school contracts COVID? Do we have to close down? The answer to that question is no, you do not. You have the ability to make a determination whether you can manage the COVID student without in any way having to shut down the entire school. Now, we would certainly recommend being careful. That may require some extra sanitation and cleaning. You may want to warn some of the other parents that have had contact with the student, maybe on a sports team or in a classroom, but be very careful here. You do not need to disclose the name or the identity of the student that has COVID. It's very important that we carefully protect the medical information of someone without their permission. So if you were to say someone on our volleyball team had COVID, that's all you need to say, and encourage parents of the other volleyball teammates to be monitoring their student for any symptoms. Once a student has gone 72 hours without symptoms, they could return back to school. Now, the major symptoms you need to be looking for: the fever, the red itchy eyes, the dry coughing, and 72 hours has become kind of the new threshold for someone to be declared symptom-free and to be able to return back to school. So do you have to close down your school? The answer is no. We also get asked, do you have to close down your church? The answer is identical. No, you do not. Now, certainly within the church context, you want to be careful. And it depends on where the person is in terms of different activities or things you may want to change. You certainly will want to do extra cleaning, and you always have the right to make a decision to do more. If the senior pastor of a small church contracts COVID, there could be wisdom in going to all online services for a week or two while you work through the pastor's recovery. But on the other hand, if one visitor or one member contracts COVID in a larger church, there would be no reason to shut down the church. You would just want to be careful once again if you warn the other church members that a staff person or a church member has contracted COVID, that you in no way publicly disseminate their otherwise private medical information without their permission. Make sure before you share a name, you're authorized to do so. Another question that comes up is, do we need to report COVID cases to our local health department? And the answer is no, you do not. As a ministry, as a general rule, that is being handled by the medical people that are involved, the doctors, the hospitals, and the others that actually diagnose and test for COVID, and they will be reporting. Now, there are some voluntary programs where certain employers and certain organizations wish to participate with their local health department. And if you choose to voluntarily work with your local department, that's your decision. But you're not under a legal mandate to do so. Another question we're receiving is, how do I let other families know in our school or in our preschool if one of the students comes down with COVID? Well, as I said before, you can let them know in a limited sense. It's very important that you don't create unnecessary panic. A lot of schools, if you say COVID is coming to the school, you will create an absolute panic within your student body. And so look at who that student would have had contact with. And then if you do choose to warn those parents to be watching for the symptoms in their child, just make sure that they know to be looking again for the fever, the dry cough, the red eyes, to be looking for those things. And then also to not publicly disseminate other students' private information without their parents' permission. And if you say, well, we're going to just kind of keep it secret at our school, I do want to let you know in today's online world, there really are no secrets. And as a general rule, the school is advised to take control of the narrative and make sure the information is getting out from the school's perspective as opposed to what students may say that may not be entirely accurate. Another question we're getting asked is, do we have to do our own contact tracing? And the answer here is no, you do not. As a general rule, contact tracing is where you start looking to find out all of the people that a COVID person has come in contact with. And there's different apps and different inquiries that can be followed. You're certainly welcome to cooperate with one, but as a general rule, contact tracing is the responsibility of the individual that has COVID to look at who they've come in contact with over the last couple of days and to try to figure out who else may have been exposed. But that obligation does not inure over to the school or to the church. You can cooperate with it, but you don't have the legal duty to initiate it. Another question we're being asked is, what defines an outbreak? And this can vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but if you quickly have 2 or 3 COVID cases within your ministry, a lot of jurisdictions would say you're beginning to have an outbreak. And you are always entitled to take more drastic action in lieu of more cases within your ministry. A lot of this also depends on the size of your ministry. If you have 1,000 church members and 2 of them have been confirmed COVID, that would not necessarily be an outbreak. Whereas if you have 25 church members and 2 of them have COVID, that could be deemed an outbreak within your church. And your response needs to be proportionate to the size and the scope of your ministry. And then also what level of contact this person may have with others. The pastor and the music leader both having COVID would be different than 2 visitors that came just one time. And so as you determine outbreak, you have autonomy to decide what's best for your ministry. Another question we're getting asked is, are we allowed to do prayer requests for people that have COVID? We recommend this for all medical related prayer requests, is that you, before you name a name, that you always get the permission of the individual. Whether it's cancer, whether it's heart surgery, whether it's a COVID diagnosis, without their permission, don't publicly disseminate their otherwise confidential information. You're not aware of what family members they've told, how they wish to portray it, what they're concerned about. And so if you are going to share a prayer request without permission, make sure that you stay neutral and do not name names. You could say, pray for one of our students that contracted COVID, but we're not going to publicly disseminate their name or their identity. As we've explained in this video, there's a lot of individualized analysis that goes into each of these decisions in your ministry. At the National Center for Life and Liberty, we are 100% committed to helping your church, your school, do maximum ministry, but to do it with minimal liability. There's a number of other resources online you can look at that will answer different church or school questions or mask mandates or other things that are popping up as you deal with COVID. But we're just a phone call or an email away, and we're honored to coach or assist your ministry as you want to do the best thing to accomplish what God's called you to do.